Hey everybody, Dan here, Pia Country Cluckers. So let's talk about something that, well, needs to be talked about. And that is, you have these chickens. They're chickening in your yard, backyard, doing what chickens do. And then one day, you get one of these. Well, what do you do with this? I mean, it's a yummy breakfast. But if you wanted to sell it, what's the difference between a jumbo egg, a regular egg, double A, triple A, all this and more. All right, so the first thing you need to know about eggs is that not all eggs are equal, and that there are specific regulations that guide how you can mark them and etc. One of the things that I'm going to say right up front, don't do this. And I say this, I'll show you in just a second. This is from Giant Eagle, a local grocery store chain in and around the East Coast area. If you're selling your eggs, don't use a Giant Eagle. Seriously, get your own or get blank, because these are not Giant Eagle eggs. These came from my backyard. So that's the first thing you need to know right off the bat. Second, let's talk about diseases. Let's talk about what an egg can carry. Now, in the United States, eggs are refrigerated. If you go overseas, specifically Asia, you're going to find that there's just eggs sitting in cartons and big trolleys out in the open air. What's the difference? I mean, eggs aren't safe unless they're refrigerated, right, Dan? Not necessarily. First things first, though, we're going to talk about what this little bad boy went through to get to us. So the very first thing is, just like a human, eggs start off as, well, eggs. It starts off as the yolk, which is a third protein, a third water, and a third of vitamins, I think is what the other third is. So the yolk will then detach, and it will go into a big long tube called the infundibulum inside the chicken. What happens within the first 4 or 5 minutes as it's going through, just the yolk, mind you, is it's getting any kind of pathogens, because see, salmonella, our favorite, salmonella, listeria, etc. All those sit in the reproductive tract of the chicken. So within the first couple minutes, it's going to pick up those pathogens. Also, if the chicken is around a rooster, any fertilizing agents, shall we say, are going to be picked up and possibly put onto the yolk. So that's its first step. It's still just the yolk, and it only spends about 5 minutes as the yolk. The egg whites that you see is called the shell. So first 5 minutes, it's not going to have an egg white around it. The egg white kind of acts as a suspension, if you will. So from there, it goes into another tube called the magnum. The magnum is bullet shaped. So as it goes through, it's going to be picking up the egg white, and it's going to start twisting, and it's going to create what's called the chalaza, which are those white things that you sometimes see when you crack open an egg, etc., etc., etc. So it goes into that, and then after that, it's going to make it to the shell gland, and that's where the exciting stuff happens. So we have the egg, we have the yolk, we have the white popped into the shell gland. It's going to then, in the course of about 20 hours, pick up this calcium that you see on the outside. Also, at the same time, it's going to pick up something called the cuticle. The cuticle is what we want to talk about. It's also known as the bloom. So during in the shell gland, after the shell is put on, the cuticle is put on. The cuticle is a think of it as a saran wrap, if you will. Doesn't allow anything to get in, pathogens to get in, but it does allow air to pass through. So when the egg gets laid, pointy end comes out last, comes out like that, drops down to the nesting box. It has the outer shell, It has the chalaza, has the outer shell, has the inner membranes. It then has the egg white, and then the actual yolk. And if it's fertilized, you'll have a blastodisc or blastoderm if it was fertile but not fertilized, etc. So you get a nice egg like this. The bloom is what I wanted to talk about. Here's a different egg laid by one of my barred rocks. You'll notice it's a little bit lighter than the ones laid by, oh, look at that. It's a little bit lighter color than the one laid by my Buff Orpingtons. There's not a lot of difference in color. Regardless, we're not here to talk about color, we're here to talk about a bloom. So this egg comes out, and the chalaza is a little, no, the cuticle is a little wet, the bloom is a little wet. That's when you will see things get possibly adhered to. This is nesting material, it's just pine shavings, it comes right off, it's no big deal. But the whole reason I want to bring up the bloom is because the bloom is what prevents, or what allows, Asia and other places around the world to sell eggs safely at room temperature. So this guy right here, according to the FDA, is a jumbo egg. It's a jumbo AA egg. It's AA because you see right there, it's got icky on it. This actually could be mud, it could be dirt, it could be etc. But it's got some icky stuff on here. Question you must ask yourself, well, why do we remove this bloom? Why do we remove the chalaza? So in the United States, all eggs that are sold commercially, whether that be to an egg processing plant to make things like mayonnaise or cake mixes, things like cake mixes have to be completely clean. So how do they get it clean? They wash it. When they wash it, they remove the cuticle. So at that point, pathogens can get in this egg. And what's in here is a feast for any kind of pathogen that would get in here, whether that be salmonella. Well, salmonella would come somewhere else. Regardless, any of the bad stuff that we would normally, you wouldn't want to cook a steak and leave it out, then recook it. Not usually the best. If you put it in saran wrap, it'd be fine. It would be fine for a while. So in nature, said egg is deposited, fertilized, hopefully, and mama hen may or may not actually start sitting on it on day one. In fact, mama hen probably is not the girl that laid it, especially in a farm situation like we're at. Mama hen definitely wouldn't have laid it because there's a hormonal trigger within the hen called going broody. When that hormonal trigger happens, they stop laying eggs. They poop once a day versus every 5 minutes, and they sit on eggs. They'll also actually remove the feathers on their chest so that the eggs come in contact directly with the mama hen to keep them warm. So during those first 4 or 5 days where this egg is just sitting in a nest somewhere, if there was no bloom, there was no cuticle on it, it would never hatch, because there would be something inside it that would have eaten all the protein, the water, and all the vitamins and etc. that are in here. So with that being said, eggs directly unwashed are perfectly safe to eat. Not the normal in the United States for sure, but definitely safe to eat. What's better? I don't know. So let's talk about some of the regulations specific to eggs. So you notice the egg that I pulled out a minute ago, this little guy right here, it had a piece of nesting material on it. That's what's called a smear. A smear could be nesting material, it could be dirt, it could be mud from the hen's feet, it could be a feather, it could be just anything that it would come in contact to, something that got stuck to it, other than egg yolk, other than an egg from another hen. It's called a smear. And everything that gets processed will be smear free. Whether that's for a retail sale at Walmart, you pick these up, or if you were going and picking up a bottle of mayonnaise. All of them are going to be smear free. The FDA categorizes this egg as So there's two different things that the FDA will consider when it comes to eggs. There's smears, which we talked about a second ago, nesting material, etc. And then there's what's called foreign material. Foreign material, my notes are back over here, let me see, notes. So foreign material is specifically egg. You'll notice that this egg has a yolk on it. Well, the reason it has a yolk on it is because I've got an egg eater out there. Gotta figure that out. Regardless, that's not relevant for right now. This egg is not fit for human consumption according to the FDA. I will throw this out. This will not go in anything that I sell. But, let me take a look at this one. This one has just some discoloration of the shell. This would be a grade A egg. It's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with it, but it would not be sold commercially directly to a consumer because it's got spots on it. Ew, yucky spots. And that's actually because there's extra calcium inside the shell gland of this particular hen. And that's why you see the white spots on here and you see these spots is because there's different layers of calcium getting deposited on the egg. So, perfectly fine egg, perfectly fine to be left at room temperature for a few weeks. If you put this egg with the cuticle bloom intact, it can survive months in the refrigerator. And that's why when you open up eggs from PA Country Cluckers, Queen Poultry, you're gonna get eggs like this. Ew, right? So easy to take care of. All you got to do is pop this bad boy in some lukewarm water, not cold, lukewarm water. And what that will do will allow the material, if you will, to soften up. Just take a regular an old toothbrush, something, dish towel, wipe it right off, you're done. Salmonella, it's a possibility, but it's not in the egg. It did not come from the outside. Anything that the chicken was carrying in its manure is not inside the egg, guaranteed, because it has the bloom. And now you know the rest of the story. Now, just a side note, something I thought about. This egg right here, definitely not fit for human consumption. My dog loves it. You just scramble this bad boy up and hand it to her. She'll be fine. Or, as is right now, just plop it in a pan, go at it with a spatula, cook it up, give it to the hens. They'll love it. Love it. Yeah, so the last thing I wanted to mention is that PA Country Cluckers, I know myself, I am a very particular person when it comes to the food. My food has to be cooked correctly. I will send chicken back to, or I won't eat it if I don't think it's cooked enough. I just have a sensitive stomach, sensitive tummy. So anything that I wouldn't eat, I would not give to a client. I would not give to a charity. I wouldn't give to anybody, to a human. I don't give the chickens or the dogs, they're not human. But I take food safety extremely serious. That's why you'll never get a washed egg from Queen Poultry and or PA Country Cluckers. So, with that being said, I'm going to show you some eggs. Yeah, this was the carton that I was pulling the eggs out of just a few minutes ago for the different examples. You have over here on the right, this came from my red sex link. Her name is Nugget. She's always produced great eggs for us. You see these darker ones here, most likely Orpington, and this one right here, most likely Barred Rock. But you could definitely see there's manure on here. I have no problem selling it because the cuticle, the bloom, is still intact. According to the FDA, this is not a sellable egg. I won't sell it. I'll give it to the hens. I'll give it to the dogs. You'll also notice this is just extra calcium that's on the outside. It's not an actual defect with the egg. You can see that I can get it off with my thumbnail there. It's just extra calcium that got deposited on the egg after the shell had already formed. Perfectly safe to eat, but you would not see that at the grocery store. You would see eggs like maybe this guy. Actually, no, because this one looks like it's got a couple spots on it. You probably wouldn't see this in the grocery store.